Swatches don't lie. We just don't always understand what they're saying. Welcome to 3 of Skeins Knit and Crochet Podcast. This is Lisa, and today I've got a tutorial for you. Top down in the round sweaters have been popular for years now. But one of the things I hear all the time is that, why is my gauge always off? So what I'm doing today is showing you exactly how you can measure your swatch in the round to get the most accurate gauge you can. Join me while I switch to the overhead. Well, the first thing I like to do is establish the number of stitches. I don't need to count because I kept track as I cast on and as always know. I have 27 stitches in the round. I'm going to count my rows. I'm going to exclude the cast on. Now I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 rows. So I have 19 rows and 27 stitches. I'm not counting this group of stitches here because that's where I would have bound off, but I just ran a thread through it. I didn't feel the need to really bind off. Now, once I've established how many rows and how many stitches I have in my swatch, now it's time to measure. I want you to notice something about my swatch. I tend to knit tighter when I first start a project, and that's every project. As a matter of fact, you can see the difference in my beginning stitches and you can see exactly where I relaxed, and then I'm in my normal gauge. So what I like to do, because I know this happens to me, is when I am measuring, sometimes I will measure in 3 places and average that together, or I will measure in the dead center if I'm feeling a little lazy. Okay, so what I like to do when I measure a swatch that's in the round is I just wrap a tape measure around it. Not too tight, not too loose. And sometimes it takes me a minute to get it exactly the way I want. Like I don't want to squeeze it in at all. But I am getting here approximately 9 and I would say 9 5/8 inches. Maybe slightly more than 9 1/2. So I got 9 5/8 in the middle. Up at the top, I'm going to measure again. I'm getting 10. Down at the bottom, where I know the gauge is tighter, because I can visibly see it. I'm getting about 9. I'd say 9 1/8. So what I'm going to do when it's time to do the math is I'm going to average those 3 together and take my stitch gauge as the average of those 3 measurements. Because in my sweater, top down sweater in the round, or my bottom up sweater in the round, or my hat, I'm going to have the same issue where wherever I start out is going to be tighter. And as it goes along, it's going to settle into my normal gauge. So I'm going to have these issues on a larger scale if I'm doing a sweater. So it's good to capture all the different things that happen within your knitting as you work your swatch. Measuring my row gauge is going to be pretty simple. I'm going to go in the middle of the swatch approximately and measure from that last complete row of stitches to my first row of stitches. And I am getting about 4, let's say to be most accurate, it's not quite 4. Yeah, okay, it's exactly 4 inches. Okay, there we go. Now, swatching in the round, I tend to, when I get a pattern that says, okay, swatch in the round, and it says do X number of stitches by X number of rows, I like to do my swatches in general a little bit larger. If this was a flat swatch, it would be 10 inches wide or thereabouts and about 4 inches high. If it was a flat swatch, I would have actually probably made it a bit taller because I like to make my swatches squarish. So I'm not swatching for anything in this, with this particular swatch. This is just for a demo. But I like to knit until the piece is approximately squarish. So let's say you have a pattern that tells you, okay, cast on 20 stitches in the round. I would cast on more stitches because, first of all, it's easier to do a larger circumference in a tube. It's just a little bit less fiddly, and I'm getting a bigger piece of fabric to measure. And I've found that the bigger my piece of fabric is, the more accurate my measurements are. Okay, so the first bit of math I'm going to do is take the average of my 3 measurements for the stitch gauge. So I'm just going to write stitch gauge up here. And I have, so I'm going to average together my 9 5/8, and I'm going to just convert that to decimal. 9.625, 10, and my 9 1/8, and that's going to be 9.125. Now, I'm not a math whiz. I have a list, and I will put a link to my list if you would like to download your own copy of just the quick decimal conversions you'll need. So that's going to be 9.625 plus 10 plus 9.125. That's going to give me 27.75. And that I'm going to divide by 3. So that gives me a stitch gauge of 9.5. Well, that gives me a measurement of 9.59. So this is what I'm going to use to calculate my stitch gauge. So that's 9.59 inches. Now that I know how many total inches my swatch measures, I need to know about rows per inch and stitches per inch. So the first thing I'm going to calculate is the number of rows I have per inch. So I know that 19 rows equals 4 inches. To find out how many rows I have per inch, I'm just going to need to divide the number of rows, 19, by the number of inches, which is 4. And that's going to give me a total of 4.75 stitches per inch. Pardon me. 4.75 rows per inch. So for every inch of length in rows, I'm going to need to have 4 3/4 rows of stitches. So that's what that's telling me. The next thing I have to know is how many stitches per inch I'm getting. Now, I know that I cast on 27 stitches, and that equal to an average of 9.59 inches when I measured around the swatch. So what I need to do now is divide those 27 stitches by the number of inches. That's 9.59 into 27, which gives me a grand total of 2.81 stitches per inch. Now, with that information, plus my rows per inch, I can calculate how many stitches I need to get my bust width. I can calculate how many rows I need to make the sweater whatever length I want it to be, just from having those two numbers. And that is how you calculate. Hey, I hope that all the number talk didn't turn you off, but here's what you want to take away if you take away nothing else. Measure your swatch top to bottom and all the way around. If you notice that there's a gauge difference in the swatch, there's probably going to be one in the sweater too. So measure in 3 different places and average those measurements together to get a number you can work with that will encompass any of the changes in gauge that happen in your swatch. Also, work with your numbers to 2 decimal places out. Don't start to round anything off until you have to get a number that you can actually knit. I can't knit half a stitch or a quarter of a stitch. So if I need to go up a stitch so that I can get to the next whole stitch, or down a stitch so I can get to the next whole stitch, that's when any rounding would occur. And let me know if you try this out. I'd love to see what your results are. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this tutorial helps you, and I hope your next sweater fits exactly the way you want it to. If you can, please like and subscribe. Bye-bye. See you next time.